Okay, so let's change this Hall effect sensor. The first thing to do is remove this white plastic assembly on the top of the upper drum. Now, what this does is it helps keep the tape perfectly aligned along its tape path around around the heads. The only problem with that is that this whole assembly needs to come out of here. It'll obviously, we'll be working on this upside down, so we'll be dropping this out, and you can remove these two black, they're doped with carbon, these black plastic parts to help dissipate static. But you can remove these, but as you can see they do have varnish on to denote that they are actually calibrated. They're not too bad to set back up, a little bit of logic and some care, and you can get them pretty much back. They're not critical for the tape path, but you do need to keep them fairly well aligned to keep the tape even as it runs through the tape path. So rather than do that, I take off this white section and we're all good. So I'll do that now. Okay, so that's done. Take that off. And yes. And you can now see that there is now enough space for that to clear the whole drum assembly. Obviously you still have to be careful that we don't hit a head chip. But yeah, we'll be careful. Turn the machine over. Now this machine, like I said, I bought off eBay. It wasn't a huge amount of money, to be fair, but it is only a C20, so no remote control functions. They're also a bit fussy on voltage, so they need to be run at 240 volts or thereabouts. Use a screwdriver. Not had this before, so I don't know what's under here. I know it sounds a bit odd, but you'd be surprised sometimes what you find when you take the back cover off a machine. I think the worst one was a Panasonic early G deck. Took the bottom cover off and it was full of coke and rust. So yeah, you never know. But with Betamaxes, especially the Sonys, I tend to find that they've been fairly well loved. You do get some that are really badly abused. I suppose the worst ones have been where the end user has thought, well, I've got a bit of technical know-how, I'll just have a go, see what I can do, and it ends up getting very messy. I remember I bought a C9 probably a couple of years ago now, a year ago, and the guy said, oh yeah, you know, service machines and Sony trained and all the rest of it, but I don't know how to do the second and third guides on the loading ring. So it's like, really? He'd had a go and he'd well and truly just destroyed them, to be honest. They are a pain. I don't like doing them. I find them very frustrating just because of the size of the screws. It's probably my age. It's actually fairly clean. Never had this cover off. I'll give it a clean anyway while I'm in there. Clean everything as you go along. Right, so this board needs to come open. I do quite like these. These are the lock tabs. When you open the board up, when it's upside down, it will click onto these little upright parts and in theory stay open. Now I have to say, with age, the plastic is not quite as friendly, but it's not too bad. Yeah. Okay, so next thing is disconnecting everything. So, head chip, outputs via the transformers, and then we've got the fun job of tracing the rest of these cables through. I have tried to do this without disconnecting these cables, and quite honestly it ain't worth trying. You do need to really remove the whole drum assembly out. Anything short of that, you're liable to end up with drip heads, which are never good, or just finding it incredibly frustrating. So let's follow these through. As you can see, I can't remember where they go, even though I've done this countless times. I'm starting to sound like a techie that always goes by the manual. Every new job is a new job. Never learn from one's experiences. That's not quite me, to be fair. It's an interesting one, that, actually, how there are different techies, different styles of techie. I remember a conversation with a long-standing TV and video repair guy. Been doing it for years, and at one point he used to have a number of younger guys doing repairs and working, and he used to say about two fundamental different types. The ones that always get out the manual regardless, and the ones that just go, oh yeah, I've seen this fault before, let's just get it sorted. Okay, so we need to make a bit of a note of those cables. This cable's nearest the edge of the... I'm hoping you can see all this. I'm doing all of this and not looking at the camera at all. Let's get these out. And that RF. So that's that. I remember actually, it's been a while since I've done one of these, you know. Maybe I ought to get the manual out. So that's that. And then we've got this one here. And I seem to remember this one. Oh, it can't be that, surely. No. I think it's that blue one. Yeah, it is. It sits on a long lead. That's actually really cool because you could, in theory, just leave that connected, but well, let's go for it. Screwdriver out. That's failing another cable. Pull too hard, of course. There we go. That one, and then these. Easy, lovely. So there we go. All the cables off. So I'm now going to carefully turn this back over. Why have we got a main feed? Floating it down. Just can't get the staff, can you? Okay, lovely. So I'm going to turn this over, back over. Being careful not to damage the top board that I've released. So yeah, so actually those two connectors, I will show them when I put it back together. They're actually next to each other, very logical, great design, thanks Sony, super job. Now, so yeah, with the cables off, so we've got 3 screws, Hall effect sensors there, and yeah, it doesn't actually look as if there's a huge... Oh yes, there is. There's loads of glue. Oh wow. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, having given how it was reacting when I first turned it on, that it is just the glue. The Hall effect's probably okay. But it won't be for long, I'm sure. So let's just clean it up, get it out, change it, sort it. Job's a good one. Right, so, oh dear, getting too old for this. Let's, now I don't know the best way to do this. I just use one of these and a spanner, and I do my best to sympathetically adjust spanner. So, oh gosh, there we go. So it doesn't cause too much stress. Oh, he says. and then 7mm. I have to get the socket set on it. Oh, there we go. I did have one that was so tight I had to get the socket set on it. So take the nut off, of course, and then there is a washer. So you can actually lift the whole thing off with the washer in place, that's fine. But what tends to happen is the washer will move and it will get caught in the thread, and it just makes it that much more difficult to lift off. So yeah, I tend to like to remove the washer if I can. Okay, so well, I'm going to try it without removing the washer. Let's see how we go. Actually, I don't need to do it. I don't need to worry. All we need to know is that is off. You can remove the nut after it's taken out of the machine. I just find it easier to remove it now. So, to be honest, I'm not going to worry about removing the magnet because, thinking on, the magnet is easy to get off once you get clear access to both sides of the motor. At the moment, the capstan motor is causing it to be a bit tricky. So let's do it that way. You wouldn't know I've done this before. Yeah, when you take these screws out, move the screw. There's a spring. And there's a washer as well, and you don't want to lose any of that. There's the spring or the washer. They are important to make sure that everything is hunky-dory. Okay, and now we drop this out. It should just drop straight through. I have to guide it a bit so it doesn't strike anything. Just use common sense, really. Let's put that down there for a second. Machine comes off the bench. Okay, so it actually doesn't look too bad, this. I mean, there is wear, and there's quite a lot of wear at the top end of that, but it ain't bad for the age of this. So what we'll do now is we'll give it a clean. You see the head there, possibly. We'll give it a clean when we're finished, but yeah, let's get this motor off. And just lifting it up, and the washer behaved. Lovely. So next thing is to desolder these 3 joints and make sure they're clear, so you don't want to damage anything when we put it apart. Then undo these 2 screws. Now you'll probably find that once these 2 screws are taken out, what tends to happen is it still sticks, and that's because Sony, when they built these, they tended to use, I think it's almost like PCB green varnish, but there's something anyway that helps stick these metal assemblies to the base of the drum. So just be aware of that. It's not going to be plain sailing necessarily. Taking those off, I don't think you've actually trapped anything if you've or forgotten anything if they don't come off straight away. So yeah. Let's bring the iron over on my extra long extension. Super. And solder. I need some of that at some point. Are we looking? Temperature's building up for 4456. Seems to be the magic number. So yeah, you also see there's a little, just at the top there, there's a little spacer washer there as well. Don't lose that. It'll only cause problems. So just removing the solder, being careful not to put the iron too close to the, I'm going to put a bit of solder on there to help it run. It's probably little minimal flux, not enough flux to make it run properly anyway. Let's solder it up a bit. And I have to say, I don't know, my iron is quite really truly hot enough. It is doing the trick. Just being a bit careful of where the end of the one coil is soldered onto the board as well. I don't really want to remove that, put too much heat to it. It's literally just doing the three prongs. Right, that's sort of it. I have a feeling I might not have removed enough solder, but let's see how we get on. I'm trying not to push too hard on anything either, because obviously the bearings are of an age, I suppose. Does this have any varnish in between? Ooh, maybe not. Yes it does. Ooh. Nope, a total lie. Don't need to remove that. Yeah, okay. So, it's been a while since I've done this. What I would recommend is changing these caps. In order to change these caps, you do need to actually remove the board completely in its entirety. Am I going to change these caps? No. No, I'm probably not, because they're going to be okay, I reckon. Am I going to test them? No, probably should. So there you go. So this is the complete motor assembly together with its lead. Very, very little to it, to be honest. The rest of this is just purely for the video signal from the heads. And then this is the... what would that be? Be feedback from the drum. Yeah, it's feedback from the drum, because this is for the head switching. So it knows when to switch between one head and the other from a physical signal from the base of the head disc. Little graphite, I think the graphite parts that are added to the head, which trigger little sensors, send a signal down here and tell the machine where the head is, and when to switch from one head to the other. Of course, there is an adjustment for that. Okay, so I have desoldered this, but I'm not going to bother changing these caps. I'm fairly confident they're going to be okay. I should test them really, but I'm not going to. Because I'm happy that they're going to be okay, to be honest, given the performance of the machine before it went wrong. So let's desolder. I just know what people are going to say. They're going to say, oh, there's bumbling and all the rest of it. To be honest, I used to change them, and I used to test them. I've never found a problem with them. You will find on some forums that they'll say that they are bad, can cause this problem, can cause the heads to slow down, stop, all the rest of it, cause problems. I have never ever found that. I have to say, it's always this sensor. There we go. And you can see, hopefully you can see, that on the top, I'll describe it anyway, on the top there is a circle. Now that circle denotes which way the Hall sensor needs to actually be reinstalled when you put the new one in. So underneath it should say, oh, 3G, ooh, different, usually I say 3H. But yeah, it's a 3G on there. And that's the side with the lettering on, faces towards the board, and then the round bit is, if you like, the sensor itself, the actual sensor, so that needs to face where the magnets are going. So we now need to do a bit of scrapey and get off that. What am I going to use? I'm tempted to be naughty and use. Oh, that's coming off really well. Should never use tweezers like this. I always remember watching Lewis Rossman videos, and he always had ruined tweezers. And yeah, it's because you use them, you end up using them for things that are not really supposed to be used for. Right, so next thing, new Hall effect device. Round circle. Now stagger the legs. So number 1 goes back, number 3 goes back, and then we poke it in. And then we take a guess and when to push it over. Usually I do it about that high. So the leads are poking out a little bit generously out the bottom there, and then push it down. Sort of guide it as you push it. You can see how it's going. So it goes down, and just push it home. And there we go. So you can see that that's sort of length. So it is quite generous, and that's it. That is in, and let's get that sealed. Soldering. Nice. Okay, super. So, with my lovely Japanese wire cutters. I love these things. See, I hardly put any pressure on them, and it's just like so smooth how it cuts through. Okay, lovely. So, I need to put this back together, being careful not to put our fingers on the actual head area. Yeah, you can actually see, be careful, you can actually see where there is actually varnish. And to me it does look like PCB varnish. Sometimes there's a lot of it, sometimes it's just a bit like this, and to be honest it didn't cause me a problem, but it can do. It can really feel like you haven't actually removed something, and you have. I'm just going to solder these back up. Didn't need to do that, did we really? Like I say, do that if you want to change caps. I don't know, if you're doing it for yourself and you really want to be pedantic about doing it, or, okay, it's a bit of a faff taking this apart, maybe it's worth doing it, I don't know. But like I say, I've changed them and I've never found they've been bad. So yeah, whatever you think. Honestly, the staff can manage to catch the red wire actually in the clip rather than getting it through the gap. Let's try that again. I don't think you have to be quite so pedantic as I am about being so close, because you can just pull it through, but let's get it in the right position. You see there's two holes there. That's the hole obviously that mounts it to the deck. That's the hole you want next to it. Screws, can't miss them. They have shape-proof washers on them. Put the standard ones on, they'll probably fall out and make your machine explode. No, not really. I'm sure it'd be okay with normal ones, but the thing to note is that they are of a very specific length. You screen these into an alloy. Don't get it wrong. Don't get the wrong thread. Make sure you take care to use the same screws that you took out. If you lose them, then try and compare the remaining one that you've got to make sure you get the right length and thread type. Don't ask me what the thread type is. I have no idea. Okay, so at this stage you can see the new Hall effect sensor. So yeah, you can see the Hall effect sensor. Soldering. I've resoldered the board back on. I needed to do that. Didn't need to remove it really. That's a habit from a bygone age. All the glue's cleared off. Yeah, it's looking really good. Let's get this back together. So, magnets back on. To do with the nuts. To be fair, I'm going to tighten this on the before I put it back in, because tightening is actually easier out of the machine, but loosening it is easier in the machine. I find, probably other people find it, and other ways of doing it. I will say usually use a socket on this, but there we go. Nice and tight, so having a party, having a Betamax party. Right, yeah. its head, drum assembly, needs to go something like that, but obviously from what is now underneath. So, honestly, I'm making this look a lot worse than it actually is. What's really odd about this machine is I don't even know. Those are any good. I assume they are, because to be fair, they're usually not too bad on Sony's. They are tough, ish. I think that's probably the safest way to put it. Okay, so doing up one, I'm not fully tightening it, but you can let go. Once you've got one in, you're okay. Obviously, like I say, just make sure that the washer goes on as well. It can be a bit of a fiddle, but the washer needs to go on. And with the spring, it's going against the plastic assembly. And on these machines, you don't want that, especially as they're getting old, because the plastic is not quite as strong as it ever used to be. But yeah, it'll all be wrong. The depth will be wrong of the actual screws as well. So that's tight. I tend to put them all in and then tighten them up. It's all in. I don't know whether that makes any difference, but it makes me feel better. Okie dokie, so reroute the cables back round. I'm not going to put that in yet. I know it's very tempting because it's really close, but it's also quite tight. The cable run is quite tight there, so you'll find that this keeps flopping down as a result of the cable putting back on itself. And clean that up. Oh, I wonder where I cut myself. I think I must have cut myself on here. That's bad, isn't it? Dangers of working on Betamaxes. Government health warning. Yeah, okay. Well. Underneath the loom, I'm amazed how much extra they gave on this one. I think that's for testing, so you can actually test what signals are coming back. Oh, screws being awkward. Yeah, when you screw these boards in, when you put the screws in, don't tighten them up one by one. Just put them in loosely. Put them in loosely, let the board sort of align itself, and then tighten up all the screws. Because it's very common that you put one screw in, tighten it up, and start to put the second one in. It's like, there's a hole, it's not getting in the hole properly. And you start sort of messing about trying to get the thing in, and it doesn't happen. So put them in loosely, align the board, put the next one in, align the board. Should be alright after that. Let's give it a bit of I just realised what I'm getting covered in old belt stuff. Oh, don't put it on the carpet. Okay, so that brush might have to have a visit with good old Mr. MrBetaByte. I'm not going to do all of this now, obviously. Well, it's all apart. Probably should use a mask. I never have, and I'm sure I'll pay the price for that as I get older. I could tell you a story about this, or about that, but I'm not, because it's a bit gross. Okay, so, caught underneath the machine. Interesting. Right, so that sound is the sound of isopropyl. Clean that off. Don't really want to have icky, sticky old belts. Like I say, I'll do the rest of the machine at some point, but sort of while it's apart, all stuff's hunky dory. Just clean the bits that are accessible at this moment. I do like the way Sony give you a bit of extra cable and fold it over and put it in the clips like that. It's really handy. So again, remembering the trick, I'm putting this all together like it's going to work. Put the screws in, but don't tighten them right up. Doesn't actually seem to align that well. Gentle persuasion. Oh yeah, that's fine, I think. Yeah. I need to put in one of the guide screws in. It should have been a bit annoying, but it doesn't fit. Sony's of this sort of era. Let me think. C9, C20, C30, C40, possibly the C80. I've not seen a C80 yet, but they do seem to be very similar. They all use the very small screws, small diameter thread screws, really high quality, excellent screws, great until you lose them and you haven't got any spares, because they're not easy to come across. Notice there's a bit of build-up of... Oh, I didn't clean that. Doesn't matter. So, just cleaning up tape residue. Q-tip in heads. No! No, it's fine. It's only on the top. Okay, so now I'm going to clean the actual head surfaces. Usually, and I forgot, it's only because I'm making a video, I forgot about half a dozen million other things, but usually I do it with it off the machine because it's just so much easier and you can really make sure that it's 100% clean, but it's not a problem. Isopropyl. Where they tend to have dirt build up is underneath where that plastic assembly goes. That's going left to right. I tend to hold the pad static and just gently rotate the heads very slowly. Clean off any residue. How are we looking? Oh yeah, it's actually cleaned off quite a bit off the heads. Wow. What a mucky. Ideally I like these these head drums really clean for obvious reasons. It does make a huge difference to the playback quality and just the general welfare of the machine. Clean everything else while I'm in there. Audio head, it's pretty clean. And the rest of it seems pretty clean. Pinch roller looks terrible. Terrible, but not in a bad way. Yeah, actually not in a bad way. Not much came off that. I was expecting that to be fairly black. Pinch rollers are starting to get a problem with these machines. Can't get them. They are specific to these machines. It's not just a pinch roller, it's a pinch roller assembly. I have been lucky enough to source one new old stock, which I am very selfishly keeping for my own 950, which is a beautiful machine, low hours, but I just want to keep it running. So the pinch roll out of that machine will go in another machine, which might actually be my 750 ME multi-standard machine with the noisy bearings. I don't know whether that video's been done yet. I'm going to say it probably hasn't. I started recording some stuff about it, but there it is. Again, make sure these screws, you don't lose them. Length is specific. If you're getting too long, that does go straight the way through to where the heads rotate, and yeah, you might cause issues. So let's power this on. I think I've done everything. Now, as you can see, I still have a problem insofar as, yeah, the solenoid is still sticking a bit, so yeah. And there we go. Heads are rotating. Probably not that easy to see. There was a bit of an issue with the spools not running as well, which turned out to be a re-grease on the spool assembly. Another common problem, pendulum idler, which is geared with a magnetic clutch. Very clever design, but the actual pivot that rotates on becomes stiff, dried out, and causes all sorts of problems. So, bit of grease on there, clean out throughout, to be honest, and it's lovely. So I will strip this back down. I didn't actually do a full strip down because it seemed to work after I did the initial re-grease, but I'll just strip it all down now and get that working properly. But yeah, that's successful. I suppose the next thing is to try sets of... What if I just drop... Oh, I'll drop one of those. Not the bad one, not the good one. No, that's good. So... Move you on. And... hopefully this should be dry enough. It's looking pretty good actually. Let's give it a go. What have we got to lose, eh? Ooh. That sounded a bit sad. Yeah, I'm going to have to strip this down a bit. Give it a wind. It's winding fine. It's the first time I've put a tape in this, a proper tape. Oh, nice. Try tracking. This is an old tape. So it's not wonderful. But that works well. I'm happy with that. Seems to be pretty tip-top. Lovely. Really happy with that. It's still like, yeah, C20 like. You don't get perfect stills from a C20. That's actually really not bad at all. Right, so working machine. The next thing is to clean out all this dust. Take the front off, clean out all the mess from the screen here. Check the deck. So all of this will come apart. All of this will be cleaned. The loading ring cleaned. I've already cleaned most of the actual tape part. So that's fine. Double check the leaf switches here. The micro switches, loading, unloading, micro switches, gaps. I'll put a test tape, the alignment tape side through it, double check that's okay. I'll check back tension. Usually, I seem to remember they're not terribly bad by default, but I check them anyway, obviously they're old. And the underparts has already been pretty well greased and checked, so that's fine. And yeah, it helps have all the tension in that, but yeah, it should be really good. I'm really pleased with this. I'll check it for recording. You always check these machines for recording, because that gives you a good indication of how much life is left in the head for playback. Unless it's an F30, because they cheat. But yeah, that's it. So all good to go.